This is Fine Cotton, a racehorse so bad no one thought it could win. But it did, in a horse-swapping scandal that rocked Australia. John Gillespie was a seasoned con man, in and out of jail for financial scams. He had no steady job but thrived in the shadows, where schemes were measured in thousands of dollars, or lives. In August 1984, in Brisbane, a major city on Australia's east coast, Gillespie teamed up with two accomplices, Robert North, the son of a wealthy family, and Hayden Haitana, a professional horse trainer. Together, they hatched a plan to pull off a scam at the Second Novice Handicap, a minor race at Eagle Farm Racecourse. This race was for nobodies, horses with losing streaks never amounting to much. In Australian racing culture, these low-stakes races weren't prestigious, but were perfect for making bank, especially through betting. With the right fix, a single horse swap could rake in a fortune. Gillespie bought two horses. The first was Fine Cotton, an 8-year-old scruffy black horse with a dismal record, just 2 wins in 70 races, recently finishing 10th in a minor event. The second was Dashing Solitaire, a high-quality racehorse with a sleek build and superior speed. Its dark brown coat was close enough to Fine Cotton's, a critical detail for the swap. The strategy was simple. Enter Fine Cotton to get sky-high betting odds, then swap it with Dashing Solitaire, a horse that could actually win. They'd bet heavily on Fine Cotton and cash in big when the ringer crossed the finish line. It seemed like a foolproof plan, until it all unraveled because of a kangaroo. With just a week to go before the race, everything seemed perfectly in place. Dashing Solitaire, the linchpin of the plan, was being carefully trained in isolation at a quiet farm outside Brisbane. But Australia has something no plan can account for: wild kangaroos. One afternoon, as Dashing was being led to a field, a group of kangaroos bounded over a fence. The horse panicked, broke free, and bolted straight into a barbed wire fence. Its front leg was badly cut, blood pouring. The injury wasn't fatal, but it was enough to rule Dashing out of any race. Gillespie got the news while drinking at a Brisbane pub. Most people would have called it quits, but for Gillespie, that wasn't an option. He'd borrowed money from the underground betting world, from people who didn't take failure as an excuse. Some rumors suggested local mafia had caught wind of the swap and placed big bets on Fine Cotton. Gillespie was trapped. Canceling the plan didn't just mean losing money, it could cost him his freedom or his life. Now, he needed a replacement horse, one that could match Dashing's speed and look close enough to Fine Cotton to avoid detection. With only days left, there was no time for trials, no time for training, no room for error. The horse swap scheme had entered a new phase, no longer just a betting scam, but a game of survival. With no other options, Gillespie and his crew scrambled and found a replacement horse, Bold Personality. It was fast enough to win, but there was a major problem. It looked nothing like Fine Cotton. Fine Cotton had dark brown, almost black fur, with white socks on all 4 legs. Bold Personality had light brown fur, no socks, and a different build. So, they decided to dye the horse. They hit up a pharmacy, grabbing boxes of Clairol human hair dye, and slathered it all over Bold Personality. The horse turned a blazing orange. It didn't look like Fine Cotton. It looked like a galloping brick. Panicked, the group tried to scrub it off with soap and water. The orange faded slightly, but was still way too bright. They couldn't let the horse race looking like that. So, they threw a dark horse blanket over it, hoping to keep it covered until the last possible moment. But the legs were still an issue. Fine Cotton had white socks, Bold Personality didn't. Their solution? Spray paint the legs white. The paint was sloppy, dripping onto the hooves. To hide the mess, they wrapped bandages around the hooves, passing them off as protective wraps. A botched dye job, white painted legs, bandaged hooves, and a faint orange glow under a dark blanket. To them, it just had to pass the initial inspection. That was enough. What happened next, they couldn't have predicted. Race day arrived. Bold Personality, now posing as Fine Cotton, was brought to Eagle Farm Racecourse. Its fur was still slightly off, its legs wrapped in white bandages. Up close it looked odd. But the pre-race check was quick, and strangely, no one raised a fuss. The horse blanket stayed on until the final moments. The plan was still on track. When the starting bell rang, Fine Cotton was led to the gate. Everyone thought this was the same horse that finished 10th or 12th in obscure races. And then, boom. the race began. From the first few meters, the worst horse on the track shot forward like a rocket. It blew past the others with ease, as if the race was its own. Within seconds, it was in the lead. The crowd was stunned. Fine Cotton? In first? For real? Bettors who'd taken the long odds started to grin. Spectators just shook their heads in disbelief. At the final turn, Fine Cotton held its pace. The cheers grew louder, and then, as if scripted, the horse crossed the finish line first. The stands erupted. Betting slips waved in the air as people dreamed of cashing in. Gillespie and his crew, watching from nearby, stayed calm, but were already mentally spending the profits. But then, a few spectators near the stables started to notice something. After Fine Cotton crossed the finish line, the atmosphere at Eagle Farm was electric, but it didn't last. From the stables, a few onlookers spotted something odd. Sweat was washing the white paint off the horse's legs, dripping onto its hooves. Someone shouted, "Ring in! Ring in!" slang for a swapped horse. Minutes earlier, the crowd had been cheering a miracle. Now, boos and shouts swept through the stands like a tidal wave. The organizers halted the prize ceremony. An emergency inspection was launched on the spot. It was obvious. The white paint on the hooves was smudged. The real fur underneath was too light. The paperwork didn't match. The horse's size was off. There was no doubt. The winner wasn't Fine Cotton. The race was voided. The prize money was frozen. Harbor Gold, the second-place horse, was declared the official winner. Days later, the police moved in. John Gillespie, the mastermind, was arrested and put on trial. He showed no remorse. Years later, in an interview, he said, "If that horse hadn't gotten hurt, we'd have pulled it off." The system's easy to fool. Honestly, I bet some people knew and just looked the other way. Rumors swirled that Gillespie had even bet on Harbor Gold as a backup and quietly profited despite the bust, though this was never proven. His accomplice, Hayden Haitana, the trainer, went on the run. Over a month later, he was caught in a pub near Adelaide. At trial, Haitana looked nervous and drained. He insisted he was just a pawn, pleading for leniency. The third man, Robert North, from a prominent Brisbane family, stayed silent throughout. A source said he was too ashamed to face his parents. In the end, Gillespie got 4 years in prison. Haitana and North received lighter sentences. All three were banned for life from any horse racing activities in Australia. From a seemingly airtight scam, they ended up with nothing and were immortalized, not for their genius, but for pulling off one of the dumbest, most infamous scams in Australian sports history. And what of the real star of the scandal? The actual Fine Cotton. It faded from the spotlight and lived out a story no one could have predicted. While the scam unraveled and the culprits faced trial, the real Fine Cotton quietly disappeared. Unbeknownst to most, trainer Hayden Haitana had secretly slipped the horse into the stables of the Queensland Police Mounted Unit, right in the heart of the city. There, among disciplined patrol horses, Fine Cotton, once a symbol of fraud, lived out its final years in peace, unrecognized. It died in 2009 at the age of 32, a rare lifespan for a racehorse. From an obscure nobody, Fine Cotton became a name tied to the most absurd scandal in Australian racing history, where a bit of white paint, some hair dye, and way too much confidence created a legend.